Hello, it's me, Mr. Nichols. I want to start out by first talking to you guys about the announcements that are going to be, or that I put on last night. Additionally, we're going to be talking about the research paper assignment today. I'll be briefly going over the entire assignment with you and the steps, like where you can find things in the document, how those assignments get released to you, and I also want to go through step one of the assignment with you today in pretty decent detail, where I'm going to show you how to come up with a topic and do some preliminary research on that topic. It's a little different than the opposing viewpoints that we used for the compare and contrast essay some of you did to find news articles. It's a little bit different because really you're not supposed to use that database this time. You're only supposed to use Academic Search Complete. You may notice that my sleeves are down, going to be down this entire video because it is freezing in this room that I'm in right now. I'm pretty sure we have access to heating technology. I'm not 100% sure why it's not being utilized at the moment, although there may be usually a buzzing in my video from the AC unit that is going out, and I don't think it's on right now, so bonus. It's nice and quiet in here. There's no buzzing that I feel like is invading my ears. That's good. That's a good thing. But let's log in and let's get moving on this and see what the research. I can barely type. My fingers are so cold. Woo! Okay, why is that so tiny? Be bigger. There we go. Let's see. English 1301. So let's go to the notification first. We'll get to that. I'll make it a little bigger. I mean, I realize that most of you are probably not watching this on the computer, probably watching on mobile. Actually, it's something I never considered until just now, even though it's better than a computer. So, just so you know, Nichols is back. Class is back on. I'll start with this. Well, yeah, class is back on. My wife is doing much better. I helped a lot more than I anticipated, especially earlier in the week. By the end of the weekend, though, she felt like she was 100%. I still don't feel like she was 100%. But she was being, she's back to her old self. She's stubborn and is trying to do stuff again. But she's not in as much pain, and it doesn't seem to be hurting her as badly. So now I'm gone, and who knows what she's doing. You know, she's probably doing all kinds of stuff. So I have finished writing the research paper assignment. It needed a whole bunch of changes as a result of me doing online and face-to-face delivery this semester. Basically, I figured out, I kind of crunched the numbers and realized that I'm doing about twice as much work as usual and doing about half the teaching, which is kind of insane, considering, like, I don't know, it's a little frustrating because there's all these things I want to do and I'm just creating these videos, but as a result, a lot of my assignments I usually do get changed a lot, especially the delivery of them on Blackboard, because used to, Blackboard wasn't that important a space. I just kind of threw stuff there, students could log on, use it when they needed it, and leave. Now it's like that's the way in which the class is communicated to you and in order, so I kind of had to, you know, come up with this stuff kind of as I go. But the research assignment being done, being deployed, that basically means that I'm almost 100% done with content for the semester in terms of getting content ready. And that took up a lot of my time. Like, I don't think you realize how much of that my time it took up. Every weekend that I was working, usually I work on grading from week 2 all the way to week, really the end of the semester. There's a time in like week 5 or 6, I think, when I get caught up and I stop and then I continue on and I grade the research paper. This time, though, the week 12 is when the research paper is due. This time it's week 11. The information forms have a video on them, which is something I've only done once before. That takes extra time to grade. And then the content took up the other like 5 weeks or so that I was getting stuff done. So it takes a lot of time to produce content, or at least the environment in which content is to be delivered. And a lot of times I'm creating the environment and the content at the same time. It just takes a long time. Now, though, I'm now nothing but these videos and the, well, of course, the face-to-face class, but also grading. So I'm just going to be doing, anytime I'm not making a video and editing, I'm grading it. Okay, so it shouldn't take me too long now. Now getting down to 4, like I said, sole focus, grading, making these videos. And I probably won't try to edit these too much. Sometimes in the videos I'll get a little carried away with the editing. The only time I would think I'd maybe do that would be on the presentation video sample, but I don't see myself changing that one up much. I may do some, but to me right now, I went back and watched it and I was like, you know what? It's me producing a video from home, which I thought I wanted to change, but now kind of looking back at it, I'm like, all of you are going to be doing your presentations from home too, so it's kind of more authentic to the actual experience, but you'll see that later. Let's see, grading was my time. That's what I'm doing. Make sure I used to have to make sure I had all like the stuff available so that you could do it. Let's see, midterm grades. Confused a couple of people with this. Oh, I'm sorry. Just want to mention it. I'll briefly be showing where to find feedback on graded essays here in a minute as well. Midterm grades will be released on Wednesday, I think, is when they're going to release on myPJC. And just to let you guys know, midterm does not mean the exact same thing. I think to every single person. I've got a couple emails about this so far, but when I say midterm, I don't mean midterm exam. Some teachers have a midterm exam. I believe Mr. White's one of those, where he's actually got an exam. But me, since everything's so rolled up in the writing, there's no reason to really have a separate exam. And my midterm grade is just going to be based on whatever you've done so far. And really, honestly, it's not going to mean that much because I will not have graded everything you've done so far. I will have some of it, but I will not have done every single thing you've done so far. So in my opinion, the midterm grade doesn't really mean a lot in this class. Usually I give people their first grades sometime around like once the research paper is graded, and I've got all those graded. And I sometimes will give like an earlier grade, like around the midterm time, where it's like a halfway point. But I just knew this semester it's going to be so strange with like when I was having to get the content done versus the grading and having twice as much things to do with a baby, that it was just there was no way to give those kinds of guarantees since I didn't really know 100% what to expect. Make sure that I'm centered on the camera here. I can't really tell. Yep, looks like it. So yeah, just so you're aware, midterm grades, they just mean the grade that you're given in the middle of the course. And for probably most of you, it's going to be just like that first essay in the info form and the quizzes we've done. That's about it. I'm not going to be including any launch pads, essay 2, 3, research paper materials at all. So, I mean, that's just about what I've got done right now. So, again, I said baby. Oh, and the computer issue has been taking up some time too. I've been trying to get it done as quickly as possible. But the fact that my charge port right now is on its last leg, I am going to have to send it in and get it fixed. I bought another computer, a desktop, that I'm hoping I can use at home for the video editing, which is the thing that I need the most power for. I have another old laptop that I can use to, like, I guess I can kind of record with it. I can't record perfectly, but I'm going to try to do what I can at least. And, well, anyways, computer's going to take up some time when I have to get work on it. I was thinking about stuff I have to do, time frames. 9, have a great week. I don't know why I said that 2 times before the end. Also, as you see your grades come in, remember that a 95 is basically my 100. Anything below a 95 will have some kind of suggestion for revision, even if it's something that's not that doable. I know some students I was saying, well, the problem is you need to pick a different event. This event didn't work, and that's unfortunate, but kind of the only way you would really get points back. And you may get a 0 on an assignment as well, but that's either because I'm zeroing out your first attempt and your second or third or whatever to get to the most recent, or because some other reason, like I couldn't see your paper. That did happen at least one case where I tried to download the assignment when it didn't show up in the viewer, and the downloaded assignment wasn't working. I could not, no matter what I did, get it to open. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Let's go back over here. I'm going to show you real quick where to find feedback, like I said I would. If you go to any of your assignments here, so if I go to grades, you'll see that I have an essay. Let me put a marker so people can see this. So here you can see that I have an essay, and it looks like it has a grade on it, 97. 2 options. The most obvious one, I think, is to click that little feedback bubble. It says, great work. You had me wondering what your condition was in the beginning, but by the middle it's quite clear, blah, 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 blah. But that's all you can really see. You can't see any context for it, like what goes with it. So you may want to click the essay itself. And when you click the essay itself, it brings up really the most recent attempt. I'm not sure why it does that. I think it brings up all your grade history. So if you go find the one where you actually got the 97, look at what I said. It says feedback learner, great work. But then over here on the left, once it pops up, you actually have your essay where you can see it, which is useful. It also let you see your safe assignment report, so like the originality report. If this is a real paper I was grading, I'd be like, oh my gosh, 100% plagiarized. That's terrible. So I would need to fix that by like, writing a new paper before Nichols saw. But if I go back over here to, you can notice like if I want to like go and like resubmit the paper, all I have down here at the bottom is a little button that says OK. It's not really ideal. And if I want to resubmit the paper, then I honestly should go to weekly course content, find the paper again. Oh, essay 1. I can go either to the place where it was assigned. I apologize for the yawn. So I can go there, or I can go to where it was due. What is it, week 2? It was an early due date. Either one will take me there. And then you notice that here, instead of just saying an OK button, there's an OK and there's a start new. So I can actually start a new assignment. I can attach it again. And by the way, this is the preferable method. Browse my computer and then find your file, as opposed to writing submission. I really don't want anybody whatsoever to write the submission in the submission box. It really just isn't good. And the formatting is never right. So I really don't like people to write it. But if that's the only option you have, I guess that's different. But Google Docs exists, so I don't really see why that would be the case. So let us go to, instead, we're now going to go to the research paper assignment. Okay. So to get to the research paper assignment, you go to weekly course content. Really, let's go from the new start page. Weekly course content. You're going to scroll down to this week, week 8. You notice that week 7 was fairly light. There was just a video, an essay due. But that's because here comes the WWA SmackDown. WWE SmackDown? What was it? I don't know. I don't wrestle. Week 8. And then let's get ready to rumble. Okay, so this is going to look a little intimidating. Don't be intimidated. The reason it looks like this is because why is there gray boxes in all of this? I did not do that way. Yeah, you're a liar. I didn't do that. You little jerk. So this is the research paper planning assignment. It's assigned in week 8. I tried to put the week number next to it too, so you can see like when it's all due. They all have the same assignment day, week 8. They're all assigned today. But the first step you have to do is a planning assignment, meaning you basically propose your idea to me and your research in week 9. Then once I've approved it, you'll do the annotated bibliography, which is a summary of your articles for week 10. Then once you've got those turned in, you'll do your peer review of the research paper in the next week, week 11. And then after your peer review is done, you're welcome to turn in the finished research paper. After Thanksgiving, which the next week is Thanksgiving, and we come for like 1 day. But then after Thanksgiving, Friday 12/4, the presentation over your research paper is due. So that at that point, basically everything is done for the class. You do have, however, the Launchpad labs, which are due on Friday 12/4, that are also due that same day, 12/4. But for the most part, we're all done. And if you'll notice, I'm very sleepy. If you'll notice, all of these are assigned in one place, but they're not all due right now. That just says these are the day where these are assigned. And they're all separate pieces because while they're in the same document, they're separate due dates. So if I go down to the bottom here, you can see next week, week 9, it says the planning is due. That's the only part of the research set assignment that's due. And there's a quiz, and the quiz happens. So after that, I said week 10 was the annotated bibliography. There it is right there on the list, a brief summary. And there's the assignment. And then we go down again, and it says the peer review and the paper itself. So here down we have the peer review, which you do, and then next you do the paper itself. Week 12, notice that not a whole lot happens, and there's Thanksgiving. Then we have week 13, it's nothing but the launch pads, which are actually above the presentation. And then we have the presentation. And then you go to the next week, which is just revisions due. And then, sorry about that. Final exam week. Yep, that's it. And then final exam, you shouldn't have to do it unless, oh yeah, there's this lottery quiz thing I've heard. Previous week, previous week, previous, impervioso. Okay, week 8. So, let's talk a little bit about this planning assignment. So, well, I say that's actually why are you on it so much. Let us not talk about this planning assignment, actually. Let's talk about how to get to the actual assignment packet, because that's what is sort of being, briefly talked about here. If we click here, and like normal, we go down, we scroll down, we find the PDF attached. The research paper assignment pops up. Now, I want to mention to you, I want to tell you guys to be, like, if you look, zoom out, like, it's 26 pages, but that is not how long your paper is going to have to be. Remember, this is just like my other assignments, where I provide a lot of information. Okay, I'll provide samples and all kinds of stuff. So what you see at the beginning, 1 through 7 and 8, that's all actual steps in the process. Everything else just sort of helps. So some of those things are going to like help explain, but they're not all like completely separate bits that are going to take like tons and tons and tons of time, just so you're aware. Okay, so it really isn't as intimidating as it might look. The first thing that we have here is an introduction and explanation of the research paper assignment. So you read through that, it kind of gives you a brief overview. Then there's the steps and formatting of the research paper assignment. So it's basically this page just repeated. There's not a whole lot different. And then today, all we're really going to get through is the step 1, choosing a debatable research topic and finding 5 scholarly peer-reviewed academic journal articles on the topic. And then having the research guidelines for those topics. I'll show a little bit about that next week in the research paper planning section too, since we're going to be putting together a references page and a thesis. But I'm going to try to show you everything about searching for the topic now, just so it's here on the video. But this is just the searching part. The part that actually something is due is not until next week, Friday 11/6. And there's the planning that's going to be due first, and that's going to be just, like I said, thesis, references page. Then an annotated bibliography, which is basically a summary of articles that you're going to be using for research. There's also evaluation of those articles, like how well they are, how credible, or how well they're written and how credible they are. That will have to be done as well. There's a peer review that's going to be due, and I say due Thursday 11/19. The technical due date is Thursday or Friday 11/20, but this is a weird noise from somewhere. And the official due date for it is going to be 11/20, even though I have listed here 11/19. The paper itself is going to be due week 11, Friday 11/20. I'll have it graded and back to you at some point, and then revisions will be week 14. But before that will be the presentation over the research on 12/4 after we get back from Thanksgiving. I have references here for samples for everything. So I have like the sample planning, the annotated bibliography, research paper, and a rubric for the research paper, which is a little different than what rubrics you've probably seen before, but still fairly similar. At least it tells you what to look for. And I'm currently working on creating a sample for user's presentation, but I may just use the one from the spring because it's a little off, but it's still pretty good. I may just make some modifications to it because it's not perfect, but it's workable, and it actually somebody is doing it from home, like I said before, so it actually seems possible. So, next. I'm not going to be going through step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 on this particular video. I'm only going to go through steps, I guess, what do you call it? Just A, B, and then 1 and 1A. Because that's really all we're going to have time to get to today. So, I do want to, however, show you the rest of the document. So like I said, that there's the intro where I kind of talk about it, which I'll do in a minute. Little steps, which I'm not really probably going to go over that again. But then the step 1, so it's like looking for topics and like finding it. And then the research guidelines, the guidelines for that research that you find. And then this we'll actually get to the next time. But if you actually keep going past step 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, you'll see that we get to the planning. So halfway through the document, like on page 13, we're already at like the samples, right? So we have a sample planning, we have a sample annotated bibliography, we have a sample research paper. So there's all kinds of like sample work that you can use that's helpful. And then references page for that paper and then the rubric. So it's not just this one big giant scary document of a whole bunch of stuff you have to know right now. It's a bunch of graduated steps in a research process. As you can see on the Blackboard page as well, it's got different little places you submit things. So it's really not that bad of a thing to worry about. And it's not something that I think that I would, if I were you, panic over. Nothing near the panic that I'm constantly going through with having to get essays graded. That's panicking. So yeah, just do what you just don't panic. As my main thing here. So let's start with the introduction and explanation of the research paper assignment down below. So I'm just going to click. Well, I don't want to click it. I'll scroll down because I want to read something else too. There is the progression disclaimer. Okay, something I haven't mentioned yet, but it's going to be clear when you try to move on to the next steps of the assignment. The research paper planning, the annotated bibliography, the peer review, the research paper itself, and the research paper presentation must be completed in that exact order, and no step in this process may be skipped. So Blackboard will not allow you to move on to the annotated bibliography until you've satisfactorily completed the research paper planning, nor the research paper peer review until you've satisfactorily completed the research paper peer review. That doesn't make any sense. Planning is what I meant to say. That's the second one. I should go fix that. Darn it. Thought everything was perfect. I would say, well, you know what I meant, but there's no way you would. So if you don't see the topic you're looking for above, like anything you want to look for specifically in here, like didn't he mention something about cancer? I did. Cancer. There it is. So if I mentioned, like saying you want to look it up, like where did he mention that? I mentioned it twice, cancer? Oh, and cancer in the second sentence. That thing. So going back to the top. That's a little early. Hold on. Scroll. There we go. So the reason the document is so extensive, like I said, is I try to give you just as much information as possible to allow you to be successful. And this assignment really is taking up the entirety of the rest of the course. It's like the whole course is enrolled in this, wrapped in this one assignment for the rest of the time. So that is why it's so extensive. Then lots and lots of sample assignments as well. One more thing. What was it? One more thing. Just so I can show you, like when I say that you have to progress from one aspect of the assignment to the other. Take a look at this. So I can click here at the planning assignment, and it will take me to the planning assignment. I can submit it. Boom, no big deal. But if I was to go, I don't really want to do this planning. That seems kind of lame, having to submit like my proposal. I just want to do it, get it over with. I don't want to do that either. That sounds lame. Let's just go to the paper. I don't want to do a draft. Let's just do the paper itself. It says not available. And you're like, oh, well, maybe I just went there too early. Well, no, technically it's available. So what's going on? Well, what's going on is these all have to be done in order. So this one will not pop up until you've done this one. And this one will not pop up until you've done this one. And this won't pop up until you've done this one. And it says in the bold areas on each one of these exactly what you have to do on each. So this one says you have to receive at least an 8 out of 10 on this planning assignment in order to do the annotated bibliography assignment. The same with the peer review. You have to get at least a 50 on the annotated bibliography to get the peer review. And it's not going to let you do that until we hit a certain date. At one point, I think it's like, I don't know, like 2 weeks before the end. I mean, December 4th or something like that. I mean, late November, I can't remember. But it's like a certain date. It'll unlock where you can do it no matter what, even if you don't propose it first. But that's still going to be far more likely you'll fail because, one, you're submitting it way late, and two, you're not getting approval first, which is a very dangerous game to play. Oh, darn, I have a phone in my pocket. It's going to make the video look funny. So let's go back here to the document. Now, we can go to the next part. So what are we doing in this research paper? So over the next coming weeks, we're going to be talking about argumentation. The purpose in argumentation is different than, say, narrative, cause and effect, compare and contrast, although some of those elements can be contained, or it can contain some of those elements. So in argumentation, your main goal is to make and support a claim or claims, multiple ones, using evidence-based as entirely as possible in logic. Now, when using research along with argumentation, the purpose is to use research to provide that logical support. So in your cause and effect essay, you're allowed to presume causes or effects based on your own intuition and what you could reasonably make a case for, but without the requirement to provide outside evidence of examples, details, examples, and explanations. However, in the research paper for this class, which is written in an argumentative style, you will use research articles, which are scholarly peer-reviewed academic journal articles and library database only, in order to make your case. So that means that you're not just going to be doing maybe what you've heard about in the past when you were in school, when a teacher says, okay, guys, we're going to do a research paper. And you're like, oh, okay, research paper, that's scary. What is it? And they say, all right, go like you're assigned buffaloes. Go do a research paper on buffaloes. And you would go tell them everything you can find out about buffaloes. Well, that's not what research paper means in this case. In this case, it's going to be an argumentative research paper, meaning that you'll have to prove a case. You'll pick a side of a controversial issue and prove that case. It's going to involve some cause and effect because you're going to have to think like of immediate remote effects and causes and meaning contributory. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. Same with comparison and contrast as well. You're going to be comparing and contrasting different ideas, seeing which ones work or more valid. And let's see. The research that we have available to us, the scholarly peer-reviewed academic journals, just they are the best type of research because generally speaking, they're up to a level of not journalistic standard because it's not really journalism. Research standard that's hard to beat. Now, when I talk about making an argumentation, picking a side of a controversial issue, what does that mean? You'll be arguing using scholarly peer-reviewed academic journal articles from the databases only what should happen in a controversial issue currently happening in the world today. Ideally, your paper would offer a solution to a current problem and support that solution through evidence. Your paper cannot simply define a problem or point out that there is one. You can't just say climate change is a problem or abortion is a problem. Nor can your paper simply point out that there are many sides to an issue in an informative way. You can't say, well, some say this and others say this. Some agree with abortion, some do not agree with abortion. That's not going to be good enough. You must attempt to make your case to the reader in your thesis that your solution is the best solution to the issue and use your articles to provide reasons why your solution is the best solution. Sometimes your solution will be very clear. It'll be like, this is what should be done according to the research. Other times it might not be so clear. Other times it might be just like basically finding out that, like it says, in some cases you may only discover that the research indicates that more studies should be done and that there's no clear path to a solution. You'll still be required to explore all possible solution paths in these cases to the reader, saying why there's not enough information in certain areas and what areas of information need more study. Let's see. Every single topic you choose, every controversial issue will have varying needs depending on the topic. So like any research on artificial intelligence probably shouldn't go back further than 3 years. And to be honest, most of y'all would probably have an interest in artificial intelligence ethics, not the actual articles themselves, because they're usually a bunch of computer gobbledygook. Doesn't make any sense. If you do research on sex education, you might be able to go back like 10 years, but probably not before the first iPhone, because I feel like that's really changed people's like sex education. You don't really ask your parents anymore. You just sort of look it up. I would assume. It's 2000, gosh, what, 8 when the first iPhone came out. I was 2001 was when I graduated high school, so yeah, it was a long time ago for me. The iPhones weren't available way back in the day, but they are now, and I imagine that changes people's access to information quite a bit. Now, research on homeschooling will only need to come from education journals or other journals involved in the science of how we learn, not from theological journals, which they actually occur in quite often. There'll be theology journals, which are religious journals, that will want to make the case for homeschooling, but that should only be decided by like education journals, I would think. Journals of education deciding like what the benefits and non-benefits of homeschooling are. So every single topic will have its own concerns, whether it be currency or like the type of research that's needed. It just depends on the situation. Now, Nichols, can you explain what all the steps in the assignment are about? Yes, I kind of already did, but like step 1 is just finding a controversial topic, some articles, and then considering a thesis. Then next Friday you'll submit step 2, which is a proposal for the research paper. That's you're proposing a thesis, but also submitting your articles for review. And if I decide the articles are good enough, you can continue. I basically do this so you're not wasting your time coming up with ideas that I would never have approved in the first place. And because the reason I wouldn't have approved them is because they would give you a bad grade in the paper, and I don't want that. I don't want you to waste your time. So then once you're approved, you can move on to the annotated bibliography. After that, you should work on step 5. So you're going to skip a step, work on the research paper. Once it's a workable draft, you can turn it in for the peer review. And once people review it, and you've got, or I think it's once you've reviewed people, like 3 people, besides yourself submitting. Then after that, you can actually submit the draft or then you can submit the peer review to the actual peer review assignment. So that brings us to the steps and then there's the presentation later. So that brings us to the steps and formatting of the papers. Okay, so the steps and formatting of the research assignment, it's really not that much different. It just basically says that everything was assigned this day. Each date is 11:59 p.m. by the due day listed. And it's all the same stuff I already mentioned above. Like the due dates are just the same as they are here. There's really nothing new on this page. I just always include this page because in a semester where I don't have purely online format, I think it's still going to be useful, but we'll see. It just basically says that like the planning, peer review, that's worth 200 points of the assignment. Annotated bibliography is worth 200 points. The research is worth 400 points. Basically 10% of the class, 10% of the class, 20% of the class. So it's worth 40% of the class altogether. It is the biggest assignment this semester. It kind of combines everything we know. It's one of the reasons I have it as like a graduated step process is because I want us to propose it first, get acquainted with our sources, then do the research based on those sources and not get ahead of any step of the process. I'm trying to like kind of force you into doing it in the order that's meant to be done so that it gets done the right way. Then step 1. So we're going to choose a debatable research topic and find at least 5 scholarly peer-reviewed academic journal articles on that debatable research topic. So the best place I think to look for the research is the database that I actually don't want you to use to find the research, which is the Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center database. That one's really great for finding controversial topics and just writing them down and then thinking about them and picking out your favorites. I actually have a list similar to like kind of things you might look for here. So like you might go into that database and look at like, oh, okay, well, abortion is something that interests me, artificial intelligence, Black Lives Matter, capitalism, and like all these things. And then ended up deciding on, one of them to pick for your research paper and start doing some research. You might want to play with a few of them instead of just committing to one right out of the gate, because I really do think that the research part of the process is what you're going to be spending a lot of time doing as opposed to other things. So these might be some topics you're interested in looking at the controversies around, and so you might write these down from the database. So you'll find some topics like that. You want to give yourself a lot of time to search just in case you end up spending a ton of time doing it. I would caution you against picking ideas that really aren't controversial as your controversial ideas you want to research. For example, something like cancer. I think I mentioned this in a previous video or lesson that when we're talking about the essay 3, one of the events you should choose is not one of those things like conspiracies or paranormal events, or the one I'm about to talk about here, like when a husband murders a wife or a wife murders a husband. Those really aren't controversial events, because when a wife murders a husband or a husband murders a wife, it's not really that controversial. Everybody agrees that if it's just a straight up murder, then that was wrong and it shouldn't have been done. The only controversial elements there might be, why wasn't this behavior that was caught before? But even that's sort of a stretch on the controversy, and you should probably do that in more of a broad scope effect, not or a broad scope way, not honing in on just this one person. But it's the same issue with cancer here, right? So cancer, in like 99.9% of cases, I would say, people go, yeah, cancer is not a great thing. Nobody disagrees about cancer. There's nobody who says, well, cancer's good, very rarely. And even if there were like a type of cancer that, well, actually that cancer is pretty good, like we just don't know that because nobody thinks about calling it cancer. Well, then if everybody heard it, they would all agree the same way. So cancer itself is not really that controversial. There are some controversies that relate to cancer. So, for example, the morality of the proper distribution of funding for cancer research or something like that. Like, I think one year, like, there was a big problem, I think, with the Susan G. Komen Foundation, because you have to check me on this. This is a long time ago I read this, but like, I believe that one year they only spent 7% of the money that they made as a nonprofit toward cancer research, and spent 14% on legal fees and lawyers associated with suing other cancer entities or private entities for infringing on their cancer ribbon copyright. So they spent 7% on actual cancer research that year and 14% of their funding on suing people for copyright infringement of their ribbon. Which, granted, it's bad to infringe on copyright, but I mean, it's a cancer research foundation. It's a charity. It's not supposed to be like, you're not considered. It's not IP. It's not like intellectual property that people are like, that's the number one thing we need to be spending our money on. So people found that quite controversial and unethical. So there might be issues like that you can find within cancer, like what's being done about it. I mean, is it being funded properly? Is it being funded ethically? That could have to do with it. Is breast cancer research being underfunded compared to other types of research because it is a type of cancer that women get more often, and so it's not funded as appropriately as, say, something like testicular cancer, which may be overfunded. I'm making that up, actually. I don't know. But if it were, I mean, it'd be something to look at. Sexism in cancer studies or something. So I also don't want you to pick any religious or paranormal ideas, or at least ideas that are argued from a religious or paranormal standpoint. So when you have a religious or paranormal idea, the proof in those types of instances of the research requires that the person who is reading the paper have the same belief system as the person writing the paper, and that's very unlikely. More likely the closer you get demographically, but I'm talking about on a universal scale, like on a world scale. It's very unlikely that two people who are reading a paper who speak English, in terms of like people in the world who speak English, are going to agree on religious basis on everything. Like, it's just very unlikely. Excuse me. So, basically, if you're going to make a point in a paper, it needs to be universal and provable through outside evidence. not something that will only appeal to those who would already agree with you anyway. So, for example, you are totally allowed to argue against the idea of gay marriage. If you did that, you would not need to argue from a religious standpoint. However, you can't say, well, the Bible says that homosexuality is wrong. That doesn't really matter in a science-based or evidence-based format, because a religious belief system that not everybody has, it's not about the laws of nature, it's about laws of morality as believed. If you believe in this faith-based, basically you have to take this one text and believe in it, whereas there's nothing you could go out in the universe and test and say, oh, that proves God. However, you can go and test gravity, and gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. Drop something, check it at various distances, and say, yep, it fell through that at 9.8 meters per second squared. That is something that can be measured and proven, and that's kind of the whole idea behind research-based, evidence. So you could, however, then argue something like gay marriage should not be legal because of the effects that gay marriage has on the adoptive children of gay parents. Mental health issues that might arise, or difficulty in school. I don't know. I'm literally making those things up. I haven't read articles that say that, nor do I even think those articles exist. In fact, I think in the largest study that has been done so far, I believe in Denmark, they actually found that there was no remarkable difference between children who are raised by straight and gay parents. So just to throw that out there. But make sure not to choose a problem in society as well that has already been solved. It needs to be something controversially argued, not an undeniable fact. So the only topic that is really off limits truly is sex education, although I prefer people also stay away from arguing against vaccinations or against climate change. In fact, if you were going to argue for either of those, you'd need to argue for the best way to ensure that people get vaccinated and the best way to ensure that climate change is reverse. You can't reverse it. Slowed. The effects are mitigated as much as possible. I don't really know exactly what the right word would be, but the whole idea is to, in that case, not just tell me that climate change is real or tell me that vaccinations are real, because I know that they are and that they work, is to tell me, here's what we need to do to deploy it to make sure that it is respected for what it is and deployed in the best way possible. That is a controversial idea, because some people think that, oh yeah, we should totally get rid of all oil things on the road by 2025. Other people are like, that's crazy. We don't have to worry about that until 2070 or let them phase out naturally. So there's two different schools of thought as to when it needs to be done. And I don't hear anybody these days talking about the permafrost problem, which is nuts. People don't realize how big of a deal permafrost is, and once we hit that threshold, we're all kind of screwed. Just briefly, permafrost has all the dead stuff from hundreds of thousands of years frozen into the ice, and it's actually starting to melt some of it, and it has this really bad smell to it because it's things that have died a long time ago suddenly thawing and now decomposing. But there's so much permafrost that if we worry about, if the ice caps melt, we're going to raise water level that much. That's not what we need to worry about. What we need to worry about is all of the decomposing matter that is going to be released from permafrost up in Russia and Alaska, and I believe Canada, because lots and lots of dead things are going to decompose all at once, and that's going to significantly raise methane gases in our atmosphere, which will raise temperatures. And there's a certain threshold where if we hit it, then the increased level of methanes in the atmosphere will continue causing more permafrost to literally be we could turn everything off, everybody could die at once, and the temperature would continue to rise because the rising temperature would continue to melt the permafrost and there would be nothing we could do to stop it because, well, even if we were all dead, we'd still go. And it would be unlivable anyway. So, but anyways, that's beside the point. Next, once you've found an area of research, you will find 5 scholarly peer-reviewed academic journals on the debatable research topic. And once you've found a controversial issue for research, you must find scholarly peer-reviewed academic journals only and on the Academic Search Complete database only. I've allowed other types of research in the past, but it never worked out well. Students were like, well, if I found a really good website, could I use it? And I'm like, I don't know. Usually it doesn't work out. No, trust me. Like, really good research, like super good research. I'm like, I don't know, I guess. What are you writing about? How best to solve the water crisis in Flint, Michigan. Okay, yeah, I guess go for it. And they're like, I'm like, here comes some like really great, like, I don't know, government websites, government data from around the world. They gave me like waterfacts.com. I'm just like, it's not okay. So make sure that you use the databases. And I have some guidelines for research when you start doing your research there on the next page. But how about we look up topics first? So I showed you this list right here. And that list is, composed of a bunch of items that you could find on our databases. So let's see. Where would I look? Let's just go to where I've been, and let's make a new window. And let's go to, I hope I'm already logged in. The main website, parishjc.edu. And from here, like I showed you before on the SA3, you should be getting pretty used to this by now. Quick services, or quick links, library services, databases off campus. You're going to enter your student ID, a digit birth date, and then Academic Search Complete's where you're going to do all of your scholarly peer-reviewed academic journal research. Don't go there yet. Scroll down to the bottom. If you have no idea what you're doing, go to Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center. Maybe even if you do have an idea of what you're doing, I suggest still going here. Don't type in the search box. That's not going to help you find a topic. Go to Browse Issues. There are lots and lots and lots of topics here that you can scroll through and see. Orange things, the ones that say new or updated, those are ideas that have gotten updates recently. And usually you can track them with whatever's been going on in the news. That's sometimes how you can see. So like abortion, obviously, I think that comes from Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. Police reform, likely as a result of the Black Lives Matter protests. Freedom of assembly, same reason. Race relations, racism, also Black Lives Matter protests. Rap and hip-hop music, not really sure what that one's all about. Maybe it has to do with the Black Lives Matter protests. Maybe it has to do with that Black Eyed Peas song that was used for the Biden ad. I don't know. Government stimulus packages, obviously for the pandemic, gun control, arms trade. So there's all kinds of different stuff that's going on here. But you don't just have to choose between the orange things. You can choose between different topics as well. And you can see that all the ones that I was searching for on this list, abortion was just one that I wrote down because I thought, how interesting. Artificial intelligence. Wow, there's one that's pretty cool. Black Lives Matter. Boom. Capitalism. Boom. Child labor. Boom. If y'all really want to, I don't know why, but there's always students who want to do, sex trafficking is not there anymore. What about sexual abuse, harassment, orientations, sexting, sex ed, child trafficking? Did they just move it to ultra trafficking? Drug trafficking, human trafficking of all kinds, I guess. So, all kinds of various scenarios, all kinds of interesting stuff to look at. And there's bound to be something that interests you here, or something that makes you angry, or something that makes you interested. I prefer people not pick something where you feel like you already know the answer to the question of the controversy. usually in those cases it's difficult to find research that you feel like you could truly learn from, and that's what the goal is supposed to be, is to learn from this research and then utilize it to make a case. And if you're unable to do that, it's not really going to be that great for you. So, facial recognition technology. Oh. Has virtual reality entered the... Oh, it has. I love VR. Of the Valve Index. So let us go back to this. Once I found a topic, and I'm using sex education because it's the one you can't use. And it's the topic of the planning that we have down below and also the paper. So I'm going to go to the other database now. Let's say that I've looked around here, I found some stuff, I had some fun, and then I just leave. Don't stay here, don't find articles here, just leave, go away. Because that database sucks for finding articles. Go to Academic Search Complete, main website, quick links, library services. Scroll down, databases off campus, Academic Search Complete. And then I should be able to type in sex education because that was the topic that I was talking about. Now, I want to limit it to stuff that I think will be useful to me. And let's say that my real controversial idea is, with sex education in schools, a lot of people don't want to provide it in schools, and a lot of people want to provide it earlier than other people are comfortable with. But my personal knowledge, stuff I've seen over the years, I believe that the research shows that the earlier you introduce sex education, within reason, as long as it's informative sex education about various things like safe sex, what sex does, sexual orientations. That tends to be fairly beneficial in preventing pregnancy and STDs across the population. So, sex education, I'm really kind of thinking this more in terms of say, public schools, when to start it, what's the most controversial time to... Not like I want to do it the most controversial time, but the controversy is when is the best time to start it. And so I've got to figure that out. So I'm going to do sex education, and I'm going to search it. Now, a couple of things you should always do first. Notice that here I have 9,643 articles. So what you should do is just start going to read every one of them word for word. No, okay. You want to make sure that you have a few boxes checked. One is the full text whenever you search your topic. 2, you always want to make sure that you check the scholarly peer-reviewed journal box. And notice I'm down to 6,747. So that knocked out almost a third of my articles right off the bat. Then 1951, the kind of thing they were talking about with sex. I mean, that's pre-teen mom. That's pre-16 and pregnant. I honestly think that you at least have to go back to... You probably shouldn't go back any further than the introduction of the first iPhone. Because I feel like iPhones have really changed the way sexuality is introduced to young people. I feel like back in the day you had to ask somebody. You might wander into a library and hope you find a salacious book, but these days if you hop on the internet, you ask it a question and it's going to tell you. Even if it's the wrong answer, that's often I think how most people are going to come up, they're going to come into contact with sexual information for the first time is on a digital device of some kind. So you get to avoid, having that conversation with a real person because of the awkwardness. So I'm going to go to 2010, a couple of years into the first iPhone. I think 10 years is about as long back as we need to go. 4254. So now I'm about half the results that I originally had just from checking 2 boxes, or checking a box and then doing 2010 and 2020. I don't know which articles of these aren't going to have references available, but whatever. You also want to, and there's these little ones that people sometimes don't see, is you really need to limit it just to academic journals. Notice it doesn't get rid of many, about 100 and something, but it gets rid of book reviews and a lot of students will pick out book review articles because they're shorter, but they're just reviews of books over a subject that you're interested in. So it's like you can't cite a book review of a book as research because it's almost like hearsay. I mean, the book review is itself a good book review, but the fact that you're citing it instead of the actual book is pretty it's like citing a summary. It's like citing a Spark Notes instead of an actual book. It's really weird. So we're going to check off academic journals, so we just get the academic journal articles. And then if I want to, I can also narrow it by subject or the thesaurus term. So sex education, not sure why when I'm searching for sex education, the thesaurus term pops up separately. I don't really understand that. I mean, you'd think that all of these would have sex education in some way. They all seem to have sex education in there, so I'm not going to narrow it by that factor. But let's look at their subjects: international relations, sex education, foreign affairs, and national affairs. Not really interested in that. I'm more interested in the United States. They have that one? They do. What else do we have? There's another thing. I kind of want to make sure that I get to see only English articles. And look at that. Only English articles. That knocks out 400 of them. And I only know English because I'm a stupid American. And I only know the one language. I don't even have the benefit of having my parents speak a second language that I then learned how to speak both. You know what? Honestly, language ability is supposed to be a good predictor of, like, multiple language ability. I believe is a good predictor of, or helps you with math skills. I could be wrong about that because that was a long time ago I learned that. I could be completely wrong. What is this? Show more? There's more options now? Oh, it's just the same options. No, I'm good. No, get out of there. How do I get out of there? I've never clicked that before. So let's see. We have subject term, research funding, descriptive statistics, data analysis software, questionnaires. Thesaurus term. What does that even mean? Like, where does that pop up? I don't even see that anywhere. Attitudes toward. No, let's not mess with that. Let's go with subject here and show some more. Title IX of the Education Amendments. No. Teenagers' conduct of life. Let's say, yeah, I'm kind of curious as like when should we start it at a young age. And let's hit update. We have young people's views on the constraints of sex education in Bangkok, Thailand. I'm more interested in the United States. Uganda, UK. Maybe I go back and I undo that. So you can actually find a subject that you've picked and get rid of that subject. So I can refine my results by getting rid of the teenager's conduct of life subject by Xing it out. And then I can scroll down and try that again. Just go for United States. So that's going to, I think, help me the most. Pleasure and sex education, the need for broadening both content and measurement. I mean, maybe. And here's what I do. Like, if I think I might be able to use something because I'm not sure yet, I don't know what. I would not suggest logging in and creating an account on EBSCO. Students have talked about doing that before, like, hey, I did that, haha. And then I always get an email where a student says, I can't find my articles. What do I do? Because the problem is this thing kind of sucks for keeping track of articles in that way. I would start like opening like new tabs with articles, but it might help at this point because you know that there are certain guidelines I have for articles, because I've already mentioned that, to go back over and take a look at those guidelines real quick. So I'm going to scroll down and show you the research guidelines. So absolutely necessary, all the sources must come from Academic Search Complete. That's good. That's where I am. Academic Search Complete says right here at the top. That's where I'm at. Good. Now all the sources must be from scholarly peer-reviewed academic journals. Luckily, I have checked that box, and I have also gotten rid of all book reviews, and I'm only in academic journals. That's great. So that's exactly what I want again. No Wikipedia, about.com, ask.com. Not going to happen because I'm here. No viewpoint articles. Those are a problematic source in the Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center database, which I will not get by being in this database. That's good. Now this is the part where it gets kind of tricky. All 5 articles are written by different named authors. Okay, so I have to make sure, because in research fields, sometimes authors are going to publish multiple sets of articles. Somebody who's accomplished in their field will publish multiple articles on the same subject. Much like judges deliberate in cases. I'm sure you've heard of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who recently died. She generally made a lot of monumental decisions, both as a judge and a lawyer. She didn't make decisions as a lawyer. She had cases as a lawyer, but my monumental decisions regarding gender discrimination. So that is an area in which you will see her, brought up a lot. So researchers are the same way. They'll research a particular field, and as they do more research in that field, they end up popping up more in articles of that same field. So you want to be kind of careful that you're not using the same authors over and over again. So I probably won't see very many of those repeated here, but it's good to just make sure that the main author, the #1 author on that study, is not the same one. So then I've got 5 articles published by different sponsors, journals, or periodicals. I need to make sure that all 5 of mine come from different journals. That's a little more difficult. The reason I want us doing this is to make sure that we have a broad sweep of knowledge. It very well could be, and I'm not saying this is the case, but it very well could be that the American Journal of Public Health might always publish the exact same types of opinions on these kinds of sources or this subject. So it might always be talking about how pleasure and sex education, like always pleasure needs to be talked about in sex education with minors. And like, oh, maybe that's always a weird thing that they have, and we want to stay away from that. I don't know. But that means that American Journal of Public Health, I need to only use that once. And see, here's a journal called Sex Education. So that's kind of tricky. There's probably a lot of articles from there. So that's a little risky. And actually, this, let's go back over here and look at this again. Now, it says at least 4 articles must be at least 10 pages long. Oh, gosh. Like, how do I even find that, right? Well, where you find that's usually listed here, you'll see it in 2 places, usually right there in the citation. It says by, and it's got the name, it's got the title of the journal, it's got the date and the volume number, the issue number, and then it's got the range of pages, and in case you're really bad at counting, it also tells you how many pages that is. So it's pages 145 to 48, which means 145, 46, 47, 48, that's 4 pages. It's not, really, it's not as simple as a math equation. It's like saying how many pages does it touch, not how many pages starting from 1 and doing the subtraction problem. So right there I noticed that this is only 4 pages long, and it says only 1 article may be between 6 and 10 pages, but all 4, or at least 4, must be at least 10 pages. So I'm like, oh gosh, so I can't even use this first article. So if I had opened it, I should now close it because it's not usable. Now let's see. This is a little interesting to me. How gay and bisexual men compensate for the lack of meaningful sex education in a socially conservative state. Well, like, hey, I'm in a fairly socially conservative state. It's changing over time. But considering that Texas usually votes red in elections, it has a number of Republicans in office. That means that I'm kind of in that venue. So where I don't know my interest level yet, I don't know exactly where I'm going to go in terms of sex education, maybe I'll open this article. But I need to check how many pages does it have. Pages. From sex education, 667 to 681. It tells me mathematically 15 pages. Whew, that's good. I can possibly use it. The problem is, though, if I go to the next article, Spring Fever, Process Evaluation of a Sex and Relationship Education Program for Primary School Pupils, that also comes from sex education. Oh, man. So if I decide I want to go more that direction, and that's more like grade school, this one's talking about Oklahoma, internet access for gay adults. I mean, it depends. So I'm going to go ahead and open both of them, realizing I can only use one of them. And that could become an issue, but we'll see later. Bursby is teaching comprehensive human sexuality education. That's interesting as well. That's kind of more in line with my when should we start teaching it, right? And is this from the same journal? No, it is not. It is from a different one. And how long is it? 10 pages. Good. I can possibly use this. So now I might be thinking, get rid of this one right here. But I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm just going to keep opening windows and having those saved because it's useful. Sex education, funding, facts, not fear. Don't know what that's about yet. However, I'm really going to pick it up because I see it's from Health Matrix, Journal of Law and Medicine. So that's a new journal I haven't used yet. And it's 30 pages long. 30 pages long. That might sound to you like a bad thing, but trust me, it's a very good thing. The shorter an article is, that usually means that it doesn't have as much data to back itself up. It's going to be a lot harder to make a case. But if it's 30 pages long, it should have a lot of information that's going to help you. So I'm going to open this one as well. I'm just going to keep opening. Deciding to reveal sexual information and sexuality education in mother-daughter relationships. I might skip that one because I'm more interested in the public school setting. This is college students' behavior, teenagers, higher education, privacy in the Midwest, motivation. I don't know. It doesn't sound as useful to me as the other one that I think I saw, which was process evaluation of a sex relationships education for primary school pupils. Primary school? That's young, that's UK. I don't know. Let's leave them both open. We'll do both. Implement community-based comprehensive sexuality education with high-risk youth in a conservative environment. Lessons learned. Interesting. Also from sex education. 11 pages this time. That actually sounds like the most interesting one I've seen yet. And it's from sex education. I might separate. This is going to be in a different area. Which one is funding facts, not fear? I think was also one of these. What is this one? Teaching exceptional children, health matrix, and then all of these are from sex education. And that's going to be a problem. I have to basically pick one. I can use multiple from the same journal, but I have to have 5 that are not from the same journal. So I can use extras. I just have to make sure that my primary 5 are not from the same. Texas Journal of Women in Law. Here we go. So I've got... This is also sex education, high and conservative environment lessons learned. So let's see. We have Texas Journal of Women in Law, 21 pages. Afraid of who you are. No promo homo laws in public school. I don't know what that means. No promoting homosexual laws. I don't know what that is. We're going to open it though because we're curious. Teaching theology and religion. That could bring up some interesting arguments. Human sexuality and religion, teaching methods, transformative learning, awareness, career development. I don't know. Only 11 pages long. It might just be making religious arguments. Well, let's keep going. Just the facts, separation of sex education from moral education. That I'm interested in. Evidence-based education, not necessarily moral. Yeah, that's like, okay, so now I'm sort of building an idea of what I think I'm going to see, right? Didn't I open that? Do it again. Where did it go? So how did I end up there? I don't know. So we're going to move this over. So how we got? Just the facts, birds and the bees, sex education, sex education, sex education, sex education, sex education, and Texas Journal of Women in Law. So I don't know what that thing is, that no promo homo laws. I'm just going to keep looking because I've gone through 10 and so far I've found quite a few that look interesting. Teaching philosophies guiding sexuality instruction in U.S. colleges and universities. That's a little higher than what I'm interested in. Short-term effects of a rights-based sexuality education curriculum for high school students. Rights-based. So I'm assuming that means like what your rights are. Let's see. High school students' sexual behavior, gender roles, psychosocial factors, Los Angeles. Interesting. So that's going to be like a different side of the country. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with that. So we're going to have this, and we're going to put this over here as well. So what I have now and let's see, what do I want to go with? So I've got short-term effects of rights-based sexuality education. I might close I don't really know what that means, but we're going to move it over here and kind of get it out of the way for now. Just the facts, separation of sex education and moral, birds and the bees, yes. Funding facts, not fear, Now implementing community-based comprehensive sexuality with high risk in a conservative environment. Sexuality mother-daughter, I'm not going to do the mother-daughter, getting rid of that. Spring fever, process evaluated sex and relationships educated for primary school pupils in the UK. Less interested in the UK. Gay and bisexual, that's a little specific for the overly generalized stuff that I seem to have so far. Afraid of who you are, no promo homo laws, don't know what that is. So I think I've narrowed it down to 5 that seem like they'll be somewhat related at least. Let's check the journals. It's right here. Sex education, health matrix, teaching exceptional children, educational theory, and BMC public health. So that's 5 different journals. That's great. Now, what are my other, let's see, articles contain little to no bias. I mean, because it's a scholarly peer-reviewed academic journal set, they should contain little to no bias. No more than 1 article could completely oppose your thesis. I don't know my thesis is yet. I hope to get that out of reading. 4 out of 5 could help support, maybe. I've got only articles, let's see, 13 pages, 18 pages, 10 pages, 30 pages, and 11 pages. So all of mine meet the criteria. Even better, 6 or more. I don't have to do that. At least 4 could help support, 4 contain no bias, and more than 2 articles completely oppose. Now, as you read these articles, I want to point out something to you. I've included an entire paragraph about this in case it doesn't ever get mentioned in the class. Because you should know about bias, even though I'm trying to find articles for you guys that sort of control for the idea of bias. Bias is, and you may hear this a lot of times, in fact, when we say fake news, specifically when people like Trump say fake news, what he's really saying is not fake news. He's using a hyperbolic statement. Hyperbole is exaggeration. He's exaggerating. It's like somebody says like you better shut up, I'm going to kill you. They're not really going to kill you. What they're saying is they're going to make you regret having said what you've said, but they're exaggerating and saying kill. Kind of like Trump with fake news. When he says fake news, he doesn't mean that the news itself is completely and totally fake and not real. What he means is that news seems to lean into a bias it has against him. So that in reporting facts, like, if Trump, for example, says treatment found for coronavirus, and we have been funding this, and we think we've got a pretty good treatment, the media will say the media will say like 220,000 deaths in, and Trump is finally mentioning a treatment. So he's saying that's fake news because look at it. I am talking about how we've come up with a treatment, and all you're pointing out is how many deaths there are. You are fake news. And it's not fake news so much as it is he's trying to point out that the news seems to be biased against him, at least in his view. But it is important that if I had Trump as one of my students, I would tell him the exact same thing. Really, anybody who makes these claims about fake news, something is not fake just because it disagrees with you, okay? It's important to remember that bias itself is a personal and sometimes unreasoned judgment. Okay? Personal and sometimes unreasoned judgment. I saw something very recently that was very funny to me. So this is kind of exactly what I'm talking about if I can find it. Oh, please tell me I haven't lost this. Yeah, here it is. So this is a guy who went to like a Trump rally, and I would feel the same way if this was a Biden rally, but they didn't have that on Comedy Central. So she's at a Trump rally. If people say things like this, it makes me angry when people have exceptions to their belief systems that have to do with bias. Okay, so she says, I don't know if you can even see this. Let's go here. So this woman says, you can tell Trump hasn't done anything wrong. He'd be trying to hide things. And then the guy says, so if he were blocking witnesses, you'd think he was hiding something? And she says, right. And he says, but Trump is blocking witnesses. And she says, I don't care. So the idea, and I have a problem with anybody who does this. If you're doing this for Biden, if you're doing this for Trump, it's a problem for every single person who does it. If you say, yeah, that's a bad thing, and somebody says, well, this person is doing that thing, you say, well, it's different. Yes, it's different. Like, you must be misunderstanding, or there's a hidden story there. The problem is with that, in that case, is you can see that she has a personal and basically unreasoned judgment. She says, well, if he was trying to hide stuff, we would know he was guilty. He says, but he is trying to hide something. She's like, so you see, if he's trying to hide something, and she's like, right. And he says, well, he is trying to hide something. She says, well, I don't care. Basically, when she's confronted with the knowledge that the person she supports meets the criteria that she says would exempt them from her favor, she then comes up with a new reason, like, oh, then that's not the same, that's different, And that I would consider to be a type of bias. If you say, well, this is the one thing that will keep me from, and then that doesn't change your opinion. I mean, a lot of times I think it's just people don't really know why they prefer or don't prefer a particular candidate. It's fine to prefer a candidate, and to have preferences for them. In fact, I think we should all do that. We should have or really anything we think about and we have a reason for believing, we should know why. But the problem with bias is that it is a personal and sometimes unreasoned judgment. So what does that mean? This means that an opinion is arrived at seemingly without evidence and more for personal reasons, often of internal motivations unrelated to logic. Displaying bias does not mean that someone disagrees with the opinion you believe to be correct. So, for example, if somebody reports like that coronavirus has killed 220,000 people, a journal, a newspaper like publishes that, then that doesn't mean that the journal is biased against people who think the coronavirus isn't real. It means that it's just reporting what it sees to be the case based on the CDC's reporting. Bias is when they don't seem to be able to point to any evidence. If you say that for example, I made the case one day to somebody I know. They said that, well, once the mask mandate was issued in Texas, the coronavirus case numbers started going up. So masks are actually harmful. And they told me that when you wear masks, that you're breathing into the mask and you fill it with carbon dioxide, and then you breathe that carbon dioxide back in, and that causes carbon dioxide poisoning. That is not true. That is not how breathing works. That is not how airflow works. I heard them compare it to a mosquito, like trying to stop a mosquito with a chain link fence was what trying to stop coronavirus was like with a cloth mask. But I was like, not really, because there's multiple layers of the fibers in the mask, so it's kind of like trying to stop a mosquito wrapped in a basketball. Or a mosquito wrapped in a balloon, maybe, with 45 chain link fences stacked in front of each other. And probably because he can still fly, but he's going to bump into some stuff. Will some get through? Sure. But it's a poor comparison to like do one simple two-dimensional space, and we're talking about three-dimensional items just at very small amounts that you can't see. But what I did was, when this person told me that the mask stuff went up, I said, okay, let me look at the evidence here. Let's go to Texas mask mandate, right? When was that? Effective June 3rd, the government has mandated masks be worn in most public places. The order does not apply to those who are younger than 10 years old. Okay, let's go to a new window. Texas coronavirus case numbers over time. Do we have that? Daily change. Okay, now what's the source for this data? New York Times? Google? Last 14 days, map of cases. Yeah, El Paso's, I read that El Paso is actually at capacity in its hospital right now. Hospitals, so they're saying, people, please stop. So let's see, when is June 3rd? So we look at June 3rd. Texas mask mandate at most public places. Was it June 3rd or July 3rd? Oh, schools. Date of Texas mask mandate. July 2nd, 2020. Previously resisted calls for order, July 2nd, updated. Goes into effect Friday. This is July 2nd. Thursday was published, so Friday, July 3rd. It comes ahead of 4th of July weekend, which has raised concerns about larger than usual crowds. So yeah, it's talking about July 3rd. I don't know what that June 3rd thing was. It was July 3rd. Yeah, I don't know what that is about. So it's really not June 3rd, it's July 3rd. Well, let's just take a look at this. So July 3rd, look at that. So our numbers were pretty decent before July 3rd, right? You look at our numbers, you see all the way through May 3rd, and we were actually doing a pretty decent job as a state of handling this, crisis. I think because New York, Washington, they had their outbreaks soon, so we kind of had some time to sort of mitigate the effects, at least where we are. People got to start doing the social distancing naturally, and while the masks weren't mandated, people started wearing them voluntarily, and that sort of helped a little bit. But once you hit where he was in his reopening plan and that's what the June 3rd was when we were in that phase of the reopening where if you wanted to be at certain places, you had to wear a mask. That's right. So June 3rd was when one of the, as we started doing the phased reopening, the numbers started to climb. So then he did a mask mandate July 3rd. Now, generally speaking, anybody who got the virus, it's like a 14-day turnaround, I think, in case numbers, or like 8 to 14 days or something like that, incubation period. So what you should see is whenever a mask mandate is implemented, about 14 days later, you should start to see a drop in cases. And what do you see? July 3rd? What is 14 days later? July 17th? There you go. You start to see it drop. Drop after the mask mandate. Then you see it start to rise again. And this isn't necessarily because the mask mandate has been lifted. It's still there. You're going to start to see it rise right here because of the winter months and something that doesn't. It's more time people spend indoors or something like that, the colder weather. Colder air is not as active. It moves slower. So like hot air is like this, bouncing all over the place. Whereas cold air is like not as many. The air particles are more dense. They stay closer to the ground. Whereas hot air part active, so they move around a lot more. I'm not sure 100% what the other causes are for a cold. I haven't looked much into that. Why cold weather seems to facilitate illness being transferred easier. I'm assuming it's mostly because of the time that we spend indoors rather than out of doors, but I don't know. But if I just take a look at this, I can see just by looking at the data, this is not something that's like a burden on myself either. Like I don't have to feel guilty about this truth, like that I'm wrong or right. I just say, I think that the data would seem to show that you're incorrect to that person. And I look, and sure enough, that's what it shows. If I had been wrong, and it showed that the actual mask mandate was down here, or like mask mandate started here, and then I don't know, the mask mandate like started there, and then all of a sudden our numbers started climbing, or like here and they started climbing. I don't know, something. Then I could show that I'm wrong. But in this case, I'm not wrong just because I followed the science. How necessary was that for you to know? I don't know. But basically, I try not to be biased. I try to just follow the evidence where the evidence seems to show. And if you do that, you're going to be right more often than you aren't. And there's no personal burden on you because you never have to feel like I'm the one who's right here. You just follow the expertise. You follow the data, you follow the expertise. And if you think that New York Times source, like that's not accurate, I believe you can also say like, let's see, do we have a Texas, does Texas report these numbers themselves? Yeah, Texas DSHS, the Department of something. Let's look at it. Let's open this in an incognito window because I don't want to I don't know if I have like my personal Twitter showing somewhere. Texas DSHS, what is that? Department of State Health Services, okay. So where is that post? Well, I really kind of need to see that particular post, buddy. When is that from? October 21st. Is that the post I was looking for? I don't know. What do we have? New cases reported, daily cases. When is this? June, July. So you can see June, then we have July. Oh, so the line is actually here. So July 3rd is right there. 14 days later is the middle of the month, and we start to go down. Yeah, so Texas is reporting the same numbers from the state of Texas itself. So you might not have trusted the New York Times because they're in New York, but I mean Texas itself, the Republican government of Texas is showing the exact same numbers and the same drops resulting by masks. So it's very clear here that even data that could have been biased. The New York Times seems to be reporting just what the state itself is reporting. So it's very difficult to argue against that. And let's see, where am I at? This one? This one? There we go. Oh, no, I meant to be. Where'd my thing go? Okay, it's this one actually. Let's see, close that down. Boom. So, if somebody doesn't agree with the opinion that you have, they're not biased. Somebody is only biased if, for example, if a student believes that vaccinations are unhelpful and cause autism, and they find nothing but scholarly peer-reviewed academic journal articles that give evidence to the contrary, they say, well, science seems to show this. The student should not come to the conclusion that the article is biased. It's not biased if somebody disagrees with you. If the author's conclusions seem to be arrived at through evidence using logic, data, surveys, statistics, then these conclusions are considered to be unbiased, regardless of whether they agree with your personal opinion or as a reader. Now, if, however, a source contains no objective, substantial, data-driven proof and makes only unsupported claims without actually having any proof, or saying, like, think about it, man, like, that's not good enough. And then in that case, that source would seem to be biased. It seems to have a personal reason for wanting that thing to be true. And in this case, it's important to note that we are a country where you're innocent until proven guilty, and everybody should be that way. An accusation is itself not proof. So like I say here, an accusation is not in itself a valid claim. Just being able to say that it might be related is not enough. You have to have logical, unbiased, non-pathos-driven evidence required for proof. So I want you all to keep that in mind as you're reading these research articles. I've been seeing a lot of stuff online lately that shows that people are becoming less and less adept at being able to recognize what good evidence is, and will believe a lot of claims because they're being inundated with tons and tons of claims of the same variety, and adding that all together like it's some sort of math equation that points to, well, it must be true, it's being said so often. But everybody's sharing the same stuff, so it's not like, everybody's judging it very well. So I've got articles that meet my criteria, right? What do I do with these articles? So I'm not going to tell you right now necessarily what to do with the research paper planning assignment. What I will try to do is remember to use these same articles once we get to the research paper planning assignment, because I've already done them on the video, right? That just makes the most sense. Instead, I'm going to teach you some tricks about this database. Okay, so first of all, this site here, you want to try to find, if articles have DOI numbers, that's the best thing. That is like a barcode for your article. Let's see, does this one have it? This does not. Does this one have it? This does. You can see that this one right here does not have a DOI number. Instead, it has an accession number, which I will tell you what to do with. Birds and the Bees has it. This one does have a DOI number. Look, notice how they don't always look the same. And this one right here, what do you have? Also a DOI number. So only one of my articles does not have it. My personal suggestion is at this point, since all articles have to be arranged by author when you're doing a references page, arrange these by author. So I have Secor-Turner, Rubenstein, R comes before S, Curtis, that comes before R, Lamb, that comes before R, and Constantine, that comes before Curtis. So it should be, Constantine, Curtis, Lamb, Rubenstein, and Secor-Turner. I'm going to go to this article that has my, not article, but document. And I'm just going to create a new references document, because here's the thing, guys. If you try to save these web pages, like you go, okay, well, I'll just use the same methods I've usually used before, which is to favorite the website or save the website or email myself the website. Notice how up in here it says session imager, like merger. That means session manager. So when you're in a session, it means that the same, I've told y'all before, like you can't just Google this database and get here. You have to come through the PJC channels that I told you about. It's like PJC is like, let's say the databases are like a friend's house and he's got like a big old gate around his whole property, like a fence, and you can't climb over the fence. Like, it's just not possible. You could try all day and you'll never get through. Maybe in fact it's even like an enclosed building. But inside that building, that compound that your friend has, he has like a pool, he has like video games, pool table, ping pong. They have like everything you would want to do that's fun. Food, grill. So in order to get in there, you have to like be able to open the door, right? You have to get inside. And usually your friend is there, right? He's like, oh, I'll let you in. The problem is when you try to Google it, it's like going to your friend's house when your friend isn't home. So you show up to the door and you're like, hey, can I get in here? And it's like, I don't know. How do we know you? You're like, oh, my friend lives here. Like, he's not here. We don't know that. So the problem is it won't let you in. So if you go and Google, it's like your friend not being home. But PJC is your friend. PJC is inside the database waiting to let you in. You just have to go through PJC's channel, verify for them who you are. You know, like you go up to a school and they shoot the little camera now these days at you and they say, oh, what are you here for? I'm talking about my kid. And they're like, what's your kid's name? And you tell them and they go, beep, beep, and it like lets you in the door. So it's kind of like that. And what am I talking about? So this database is not something you can Google your way to. As a result, that means that, here's the thing. You've seen this before, right? Where you try to log into an app that you haven't logged in a while, and it asks you like do two-factor authentication. It texts you this number, and you got to put the number in for the code. That's just making sure that the person who usually like has the phone number associated with the account, it texts that phone number to say, hey, if you claim you have this phone number, this is your phone number. We'll just text that phone number, and it verifies the person who started the account with that phone number has it because they'll get the phone number texted. Imagine if you're some person in like some other country somewhere like Russia, and you say, I would like to get in person account, and like they do the email and it says, oh, it's two-factor authentication. That's terrible. And you know, you get a text and you're like, the heck? Did you try to log in from Russia? No. Boom. Problem solved. That's kind of what a little bit of the same ideas behind that is kind of baked into this URL up here. This is not the same URL usually that you would see if you came back again another day. So you can't favorite this up here. The real only way to do this, to save these articles, is to do kind of some weird stuff. So I suggest first going to every single one of these articles and making sure that it has a PDF full text, because you want to make sure it's an article that you can read and it's not going to stop you from reading it. So I'm going to click this one too, just let them all load in the background. That's a big one. Hopefully it'll let me load it. So short-term effects, being it says open access journal, that's really good. So it's got an abstract, background methods, results. So they give a nice looking setup for that. They have some data in there, some flow charts, other charts, actual data with some statistical analysis, conclusions section, which is always really nice. It doesn't look like they have a big discussion section, I don't think, but they have conclusions, which is good. So that's good. Go to the next one. Sexuality education, birds and the bees, teaching it. Looks like more of a, I don't know what you would call it. It's more like methods that you could use. Seems more like a social type journal. Giving suggestions, but possibility. Educational theory. Is this the one that was like law, like a law journal? Yeah, it might read more like a law setup where it's a single column. Yeah, it kind of is. Okay, nice long journal article. It's full. No, this is the journal one, the law journal. No, Health Matrix is, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just saying stuff. Canyon, Texas, wow. Go through this one. This looks like an actual scan of a paper journal. That's interesting. This one's got a bunch of stuff too. And then we have this one, seems to be showing up as well fully. So we're good there. Good. I just want to make sure that all these seem like legitimate journals and that I was picking ones that would indeed work. So, now, I'm actually not going to do this part yet. What I would want to do first is there's a little trick. Over here on the side on the right, there is a citation button. If you click this citation button and go through the small amount of effort, guys, the very small amount of effort of scrolling down to where it says APA. Don't go with the Brazilian national standards. I don't know what those are. Scroll down slightly to the APA version. Copy this and go over to that document you set up in Microsoft Word, okay? Now, there's a little paste box up here. I suggest going to it. And it gives you the option for keep source formatting, which has this weird gray background. I don't want that. Going to this one right here says merge formatting. And notice I have some italics there. And then this one right here, keep text only, which is the exact same with no italics. Well, I know that I have italics in APA format, so I'm going to go ahead and pick this one. And honestly, there are some, I think, rules. Let's see, like Constantine, German, Berglas, Angelo, Chiping Chu, Rohrbach. I don't know that you say all of those names on the citations. Oh, wait, yeah, you do. Like on the actual site, yeah. I think it's when you give a 6 or 7. The only thing I really care about is that you take whatever citation and whatever form it's in on the database and copy paste that in. Because I will allow that because I can recognize when that's what I'm looking at. The only thing you should have to do on a references page that'll make it formulate correctly with the APA is to, I would say, highlight basically everything all the way down like that. I know it seems weird to like highlight all the way. Basically, it just guarantees that everything after this will also have the same formatting. So you hit this little paragraph settings box right here. And make sure that all the numbers on the left say 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. But you set up a special hanging indent of a ½ inch. And it shows you what that's going to look like. You also set up double spacing. That's what you want for citations. And now it's going to look like this, which is perfectly correct. You probably should always check the title here because sometimes they don't get it quite right. It says short-term effects of a rights-based sexuality education curriculum for high school students. And this should technically be every letter past the colon should be capitalized. A cluster randomized trial. As far as I know, that's correct. It might be that articles like A, B aren't supposed to be. I'm not aware of that. I always thought that the very first word that followed the colon is capitalized, so I'm going to change that. Journal titles, though, are always, their capitalizations preserved for whatever reason. Names up there look fine. The year looks fine. Issue, volume, DOI.org. See, this DOI number is really neat because what it does is if I take this, copy it, and I paste it into, let's say, this web right here, because I've been doing all this stuff in the incognito window. This will take me directly to the DOI link for this journal, and I can paste that both onto the web, and it'll take, if it's an open access journal, I can read it even without the database after this. However, if I go to a database like this one, and I just paste in the DOI link like that, it will then find that journal for me right there on the database. It'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I paste it in. It's going to be looking for that number. And I click it, and I'm right back to my citation. So it's really useful to have that full DOI number pasted in there. Super helpful. So that's what we want to have. Now I'm going to go and paste the second one in there, and I don't mind you leaving the links in, so if it makes an auto link like that, that's perfectly fine. I've got this one up there, and I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to change it, I'm going to leave it, okay? And I'm going to leave this like this to know that I've already done the citation. This one I can tell I have not. So click that cite button, scroll slightly, get the APA, copy it, go over here, merge formatting paste like I told you. Birds and the bees. This is actually incorrect. It should be, I don't know why, but it's not getting the APA right. Teaching, comprehensive, human, sexuality, education from teaching exceptional children, blah, 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 DOI number, click, enter, good. Oh no, for some reason I'm on a battery. What'd I do? Just the facts. So now we have this one. So did I do this one? Yes, I did. Citation, gonna do it again. This is gonna take a minute. But it's worth your time. I would do this literally before I've read any of these articles. I'm not even kidding. Merge formatting. Again, just the facts, the separation of sex education from moral education. Now, if any proper nouns were included in here, like Philadelphia or Trump, like you would have to keep those capitalized, okay? HTTP, okay, so I got another DOI number, that's good. So far, they are all alphabetically organized as well. Let's see, another citation. So click the little paper, copy paste this, and flip back over, merge formatting. That one doesn't have a DOI number. I'll tell you what to do with that in a second because I do still want something for that one. In fact, we'll do it right now. So if you'll look, there's, in fact, no, let's go to the other one first. This is going to be easier. It's got a DOI number. The rest of them do. So scroll down. Whoa, whoa, whoa. In fact, let's just go back in. No, it's Chicago to Arabian. I don't want that. Give me that. Copy. Copy. Merge formatting, paste again. Enter. Now what do we got? Implement community-based sexual higher further lessons learned. That should be lessons learned. Sex education, 584, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that all looks right. Now, I don't actually want you to add periods at the end of the DOI links. That's fine. And notice that we have, all of them have DOIs. We can tell easily by the links. The only problem is this one by Rubenstein, who does not have that. Oh, and I forgot to, oh, is this a book? No, it's just a journal title, so we got to fix that one too. Funding should be capitalized because it's after the colon. Did I do that with all the titles? Just the facts, separation education, birds and bees, teaching comprehensive, judgment effects for riceability, cluster randomized trial, and yeah, that one. So yeah, they're all that way, guys. So this one, notice how it's really convenient having this link that I can click, that I can paste into the database, but I don't have that for this Rubenstein article. And you might say, well, I'll just favorite the page. Remember, I already told you that won't work. So I need to do something else. So what I'm going to do instead is a little trick. Okay, so it's not this one. This is the one. Notice there's no number here. I'm going to close out of here, and just briefly, I'm actually going to click that and leave the PDF full text and go to the detailed record. Because I mentioned to you earlier there was no DOI, but there was this number called an accession number. And I'm going to copy that number, and I'm going to put, this is something you can only hear me say or see me having done to know how to do it. I want to have you type the letters A, N, and then just paste that number in, which you don't really have to do with the merge formatting. You can, but notice it turns it bold. I would prefer just to do the text only. Then I would say you don't have to put a period because it's going to complicate things. But watch what happens when, if you put in just this number, it could have changed, but I don't think this number will do what I want it to do. Remember I showed you on the other one, I could just paste the DOI link in there and it would go. On the Rubenstein, I don't know that that works. Yeah, see, no results found. However, watch this. If we take this AN, which is the database's shortcut for accession number, and you can actually see that if you search for, look, if you go to, let's see, where is this, advanced search maybe or something? Or is this question mark? Is this codes? Limiters? No. No. Field codes? Yeah. So it says field codes are things like AU, which is author, Smith. There's all kinds of those available. One thing I don't see a list of field codes here. It might exist somewhere in this long list of crap. I don't really know. But that is the field code for accession number. Okay, so what that means is it's going to search for articles that have that accession number, and that is the accession number for this article. So what I need to do is include that AN, because if you include that article, and I want to go back, I want to find it, I want to go look at it to make sure that it's there and the way it is you say it is, and I need to check a quote you put in there or something, then I can literally get back to that article. So now I have proof of all the articles, and it's not just for me to be able to get back to the article and see it, but for you to get back to the article and see it. So watch what happens here. So I'm going to say, let's go to more save options here. You'll probably just see like a giant black square covering everything while I pick a folder. Okay, let's see. So I got to go to what documents, and it's 2020, what fall did I do? Well, in fact, we're going to rename that because I like the way I've named it before. So we're going to go dash 2020 fall. That'll move it in the list next time I go in there. We're going to call this references, research, sex education, possible sources. I don't know. So now I've got these references, Constantine, Curtis, Lamb, Rubenstein. They all have the right page length. They're all from different journals. They all seem to be on a relatively similar track of sex education research. And I can try to use this to say what I think should happen based on these articles regarding public school sex education. It didn't take me very long to find these. I would suggest that everybody do what I just did, because even if our databases go down, and trust me, they go down. Generally speaking, what causes the databases to go down is to be under a heavy load, and they can't sustain the amount of load all at once. When do you think it is that people put the databases under heavy load? Is it right before the research papers due? That's right. It's right before the research papers due. Good job, person. So the problem with that is that you'll have a lot of people all at once decide that they want to hop onto the databases and find their research. And that's really, really problematic because it will kill the databases. So if you went and found these articles and just got them and you got the links, those links should then work even when the database is down for us. So it should, once you have the DOI link and you click it and it takes you somewhere, that should work regardless of whether or not you're currently logged into the database. Now you can go in and find the actual link, which would be really useful because sometimes those DOI links don't always go to an open access site. They'll go to a place where you have to pay for access, and I don't want anybody to pay for access. So my other suggestion for what you should do is close out of all these citation links, right? Close out, close out. Here we have PDF full text we're going to go back to. And I think everybody should go and save the PDFs for these articles. Have this journal article at the ready on another window, and don't forget that it's going to accidentally, like, you're going to hit the, when you hit the download button, it'll take you right here. So I'm going to go back to my 2020 fall folder. And let's actually create a, no, that's not right, is it? 1301? I guess it is, because that's my news articles from before. So we're going to call this my research paper info or something. And I'm actually going to save this document as, let's see, what was the name of that source? Constantine. I really just need that first name for most purposes. This is going to be called short-term effects. I'm just going to use a couple of keywords to let me know what it is. From BMC Public Health. And usually the year comes next, right? So let's just do the year next. 2015. Damn it. 2015. Okay. So I can see like the recency of that. No need to include the DOI number. So I put that in there. Boom. I have that PDF. Let's do the same with each one of these. It's not a whole lot of effort, guys. It really isn't. Totally worth your time Curtis, 2018. Let's say birds and bees is not that relevant, so I'm going to say teaching comprehensive. I like to have capitals because it helps me. Teaching exceptional children. That's all I need. Click up to this one, PDF, Lamb, 2013. Separation of sex ed from moral ed. And that is from educational theory. Two more. So it's really not that much effort. This is taking me a couple minutes. It's a little longer if you don't know how to type, but you should learn that skill anyway. It really can set you apart. What year was this? 2017? I don't know what the problem is. Okay. Funding facts, not fear, because I already know I'm talking about sex education. This is the one from sex education, right? No, it's from Health Matrix. Health Matrix, what was it called? Journal of Law and Medicine, okay. Journal of Law, Medicine. Should I do colon? I don't think I can do colons in the titles. No, we'll leave it. And then we have the last one, which is this one. And we're going to download it. Secor Turner. And it is 2017. Implementing community-based company with a high-risk youth and conservative environment. Implementing community-based comp sexuality ed. Implementing community-based comprehensive sex ed. Actually, let's say sexuality ed, because that's a little different, I think. And that was actually from the journal Sex Education. Boom. So what I have now is, let's say the databases go down and it does something like, oh, you know, I go to the database and I see, okay, yeah, let's go here. I want to search for this article again. Let's find it. Oh, no. My internet went down. Does this ever happen to you? And as much as you want to sit there and you want to play with the little dinosaur and have things go nicely, it just doesn't always work out where you can play with dinosaurs all day and have everything go well. Honestly, what you should be doing is instead trying to go to the folder that you've set up responsibly that has all of your sources in it that you've worked on. And those will work despite the fact that you don't have internet right now. See, I'm going to this, but I have no internet. I go to my COVID map, and I'm like, I want to go to the COVID map. Refresh, no internet. Google, no internet. Governor Abbott, no, I don't have any internet. But guess what? I have that PDF I saved. I have the whole daggum thing. So I could technically write my entire research paper, assuming I'm writing it on Microsoft Word and not Google Docs, without having access to the internet because I've already found all my articles. It's really all that you need in order to get that thing accomplished. So, personally, I think that it's a good idea to save all of your articles as you go. It's going to save you a lot of headache. It's not worth the headache that you'll have from not doing it. And it took, how long did it take me? Like 2 minutes to save them. And the citations, these are actually all you really need to submit for the, you want to know how close we are to a research paper planning assignment? Here's how close we are. What you have to have, if you go over here to the, no, that's the wrong one. If we go over here to the research document again, it says what you have to have for the planning is a references page and a thesis proposal. What that should look like is this. Look, does that look very, very similar to this? Looks pretty close to me, buddy. Pretty close. Pretty close. Look at that. Look how close that is. Can we even line them up? Come on, let's like line them up just a little bit. Line them up. Come on, just teeny bit more, come on. Look how close it is. And you can check the formatting and everything and say, look how my formatting looks good too. Oh no, he doesn't have links there, but I do. I guess mine's better. It is. This one's better. This person did not want to include, and I actually asked the person to include one Gale database article, which you don't have to do. And she decided to put a period at the end of the AN and put a search EBSCOhost, which I've erased the requirement of. You don't have to do that anymore. If you just follow what I said to do here, which was super duper easy, that'll work. And the DOI, if you leave those DOI links in there, in fact, I don't think they have DOI links anymore. They just go straight to a number. They might. I don't know. Well, do they? No, they have DOI.org, yeah. So this looks great. This looks fine to me. I have the references. That's all that I need for that sample planning. Now all I got to do is have a thesis. So thesis, in this case, it was all rural public schools in the United States should implement a comprehensive sex education program in the 6th grade. Wow, that's early. To increase awareness of the various consequences of sex and how it can affect students' futures. What will it look like when you attach the references document and you put the thesis in the comments box? It will look like this. So every thesis will be composed of a claim that is in red. So all rural public schools in the United States should implement a comprehensive sex ed in the 6th grade. The subject, the issue, is in blue. So sex education was my subject, and I went ahead and expanded that to a comprehensive sex education program as my real subject. The claim I'm making about what we should do with it is in red. And then why? What's the reasoning behind that? Well, the reasoning is so that we can increase awareness of the various consequences of sex and how it can affect students' futures, really at an early age. It's not a perfect thesis, but it's really good. So you don't have to do the color coding on your own. Really, all I have to do is, if I was going to submit a research paper planning assignment now, I always tell students it's fine by me if you want to include your thesis in the document, just so you have an easy place to copy paste it from. So at this point, I would just paste text only. Look, I've got my thesis, doesn't have to be color coded at all. In fact, color coding doesn't necessarily help me, so you don't even have to do it. But if I copy this and I go over here and I'm Magnus Baraka and I say, sure, this sounds amazing, let's submit it. Log in. I don't want to log in, dude. Bruh. Let's go to this class. We're going to go down here to, no, not all course assignments. That's where lame people go. We're going to go to weekly course content. Week 8. Nah, let's go to week 9 so we get in the good habit of going to the right week. Planning. Let us, what'd I say? Thesis in the comments box. Okay. I don't like that double spacing. Can we just Control-Shift-V and have it do normal? Yeah, but it's got this like weird spacing. Strange. Okay, so fix that. Oh, it's because it pasted in from a PDF that I had in another document. That makes perfect sense. I bet it's the spacing's here too, isn't it? Booyah, it is. You see how it is? It is. I don't know why that voice was saying. Okay, so it looks like that. Okay, so I'm going to save this. And I've got my reference. The references are good. I mean, that's all it's got to be. So I'm just going to save this. And why don't we just save it as an alternate title? I hate when that happens. Where did my daggum... Yeah, every time. Alt-F8 is always... Alt-F-A. There we go. Oh my gosh, every time. Browse. We're going to save this as... I mean, shoot, let's just save it as references, research education, planning assignment, because it seems like I'm good to go for now. Battery, I don't want battery, I'm plugged in. Thank you, gosh. About to flip a lid. You know what I mean? Check a box. Browse your computer. Look at this weird screenshot of a lady opening a tote, which is super useful. We're going to go to the Documents folder, which is on any computer that is worth its salt. Go to the Research Paper Info area. In fact, we'll move it after, because I've already got the planning assignment ready. Let's open it. It's going to pop it in there. Let's go ahead and hit submit. Bada bing, bada boom. Conversion in progress. It always says that, but it doesn't always then show the paper right afterwards, but in this case it did. So I have the thesis here. I have the references there. In fact, I guess I could just combine this into like a here's what the planning is like video, so it's all in one place. Maybe I'll just post like a copy of this next week as well. Who knows? Because it's nice to be able to show how you can search for it and do the planning all at once. So why the heck not? Why the heck? I don't know what my issue is. Let's see. So we're going to make this a little smaller so that, ironically, the document can get bigger. Let me show you how I actually grade this. You want to see how I grade this? Yes, Mr. Nichols, show us. Okay. So when I look at this, I go, okay, so does this have a topic that could be considered controversial? And is it making a controversial claim about that topic? So it says, public schools in the United States implement a comprehensive sex education program in the United States, creates awareness of the various consequences of how, okay, so is it saying, what does the topic seem to be? Let's look. Sexuality, education, curriculum, randomized trial. Birds and bees, comprehensive human sexuality education. Let's look at sex education as the topic. Just fast, sex education, sexuality education, high-risk youth, lessons. Okay, so it looks like sex education. So what do they say about sex education? All schools rural public schools in the United States should implement, it's very specific, a comprehensive sex education program. So all of them should do that in the 6th grade. That's pretty early. To increase awareness of the various consequences of sex, how it can affect students' futures. I'm assuming that means in order to like reduce teen pregnancy as well, and like, you know, because you see the consequences, that's one of the things you're going to do. Okay, so I mean the thesis seems like it's pretty good. It's making a controversial claim, so it's saying like how should sex education, an idea that's very controversial, be implemented well. Do it early, say 6th grade. Let them know. Make it comprehensive. Tell them everything they need to know, so that they're aware. So that seems to be a thesis that would be able to be argued by research, as long as you found research that showed that doing that is a good idea, and seems to give the information needed. Now I got to go through my research guidelines. And remember I told you it's got to be 5 different sets of authors, 5 different sponsors, all have to be at least 10 pages. So I'm going to go and check that. Constantine, Curtis, Lamb, Rubenstein, Secor. Those are 5 different authors. And I don't care about if there was somebody else was like on the other person's journal. I don't prefer that, but it's not a deal breaker for me, because that's a lot of names to look through and make sure that you don't have any overlap on. So I'm more concerned about the lead author. Then we have the journal, which is BMC Public Health, Teaching Exceptional Children, Educational Theory, Health Matrix, and Sex Education. I get kind of annoyed if the student didn't try to keep the italicizing correct, because then I have to hunt for the journal title. And notice I didn't really have to do much to get the formatting right for this, right? I just copy pasted, and then I just did a little razzmatazz that you watched me do so you could do it yourself. Razzmatazz. I'm like 50, like 90 up here. The best of them. Let's see. Next. How many pages is this? This was like 1 to 13. 13 pages. 134 to 43. It looks like 9 pages, but remember I told you it's actually 10 pages, just barely, because it covers 10 pages, or touches 10 pages. 460, 13, that's 17 pages. 525 to 524, that's more than 10. 44, that's more than 10. So that works. So I have the right number of pages. I have 5 different journals. I have 5 different sponsors. They seem to all be good. I have links for them as well. In the case where I don't have a link that goes to it and shows what journal it comes from. See, DOI, I don't care where it comes. If it has a DOI number, where you're good. Like if you've got a DOI number and that links directly to that article, I'm fine. I likely will, in an environment where I'm not just sitting here looking at it in this PDF viewer like this, I might sit there and have another window open where I copy and paste the DOI links to make sure it links to those real articles. And then this number here, the AN number, I have that for the one that doesn't have a link. So I'd like for y'all all to do that for those that don't provide the DOI numbers. This thesis right here is not really necessary, but I do like that they put it in there because that means that they won't lose it and we'll have to come back to Blackboard to see it. And so what I'll do is say, okay, this one gets 5 points because it has one for the subject being there clearly, 2 for there being a claim about it that could be considered controversial, and 2 for giving me a brief reasoning as to why. This one over here has 5 sources. Each one of those 5 gets a point. And so since all 5 of those have 5 different authors, 5 different sponsors, all of them meet the page number criteria, they're good. Good job, buddy. Sorry. It's really late. Like, I don't know. It honestly feels like I'm alone. But I know I'm talking to you, but it's like you're in the future, so I don't really. Hello to the future. And that's how you submit the planning assignment. That is how I grade it. That's basically all you need to know about the planning assignment, in addition to the other stuff that I showed you. And I've got it saved. And I have all the documents, too. So if I want to start writing my research paper, I can right now. And all you do for the annotated bibliography is you summarize all those articles. And I'll show you how to do it in the future because I don't have time right now. It's a little more complicated. And the same with the research paper is just taking the information you got from the articles and using it to build that case of implementing that comprehensive sex education program. Now, you're going to pick a different topic. You're not doing the sex ed thing. So, any questions? No? Okay, well, then I guess we'll just go on from there. I feel like there was one more thing. Oh, yeah, it was the thing I said I was going to do on the video, which is to show how to find the browse issues area of Gale database, which I did, and show how to look up sources in Academic Search Complete, which I did. I also showed you how to find the citations, copy paste them into a references document like this, how to format them correctly. I even went a little step further and showed you how to submit it as a references page for the research paper planning assignment and how to craft a thesis using the sample. Now, I could go in a little more detail because I didn't really go over the correctness of the document itself. I did go over like what it's supposed to look like in its final form, that there is color coding there, and that it would have a references look to it. I did not, however, cover exactly what you're supposed to be providing, which I kind of did but didn't. So in step 2, which is due next Friday, 11/6, you have the references page, like I said, and the point for me to check here, and when I grade your essay, or when I grade the planning, is to check and make sure these references are in place and that the thesis is in place. And if you get somewhere between an 8 and a 10, I think you're close enough where you can move on. And so if you get an 8 or higher, it'll let you move on to the peer review assignment or the annotated bibliography assignment. If not, it won't let you. So I'm just checking to make sure I think that your ideas are ready for a research environment. And if you've got the references page in the form that I showed you, and you've got the thesis proposed to me as well, these could be tentative research, but if you do end up changing something after I've already approved it, you need to let me know. If I have told you go find more of this type or go change something, you do need to go change it, especially if you didn't get an 8. I've already kind of told you that they all have to be academic search complete and they have to meet these guidelines. Thesis proposal. And notice how this meets that criteria as well for the thesis. It has to have the subject, make the claim about that subject, and have a reasoning behind why that claim might be true. It doesn't necessarily have to be the reason you eventually go with. It just needs to be something you think might be indicated by the research now based on what you've read so far. So you probably should do a little bit of reading. So something like American universities should provide free education in the form of grants to all first-year public higher education students in order to increase the amount of skill-based layer in the economy. So again, free education is the subject. So American universities should provide free education in the form of grants to all first-year public higher education students. So it's trying to be very specific And now why? Why would that be a good idea? Because in order to increase the amount of skill-based labor in the economy, increase the amounts of skill-based labor in the economy, that is the reason behind why we should do it. So that is sort of the way I built the other one. So you can see that's built the same. Subject, claim about that subject, and then a brief reason why. And it's the thesis around which that paper will be built. So it is subject to change, but shouldn't change too much after I've already approved it. Like I said before, a 10 is like, I think you might be able to get it. Oh no, I don't think I actually broke it down for you. So the grade number 1 through 10 means, like, if you get a 10, it means I think based on what you've shown me, you can get the highest grade possible in the paper, up to 100. If I give you a 9, it means there's something a little bit off with it. I think you still have the possibility of getting an A. I just don't think it'll be 100 based on what I see, which there aren't very many hundreds, so it doesn't really limit you for much. But it means I think you could get anywhere in the 90s with a 9. So a 90 up to a 99. If I give you an 8, it means I think you'll probably go anywhere between, like, in the 80s up to. So like an 89, which is pretty respectable still. I don't actually suggest revising anything that I give you an 8 to unless I have a big problem with it and say, please do revise this before. Because 8 usually is like the go ahead. Like, go ahead and start writing. Now, anything below an 8, it's like a 7, 6, 5. That means that I think the highest you'll get is something in the 70s or the 60s or the 50s. That's not good. You don't want to start out from the bottom. I mean, you might end up in a scenario where you can say we started from the bottom and now we're here, but it's very unlikely that's going to be the case. It's more likely going to be we started from the bottom and we're kind of still there. So I want you to revise, get yourself in a better position, then resubmit, and hopefully you'll get yourself to like an 8 or so. And that's what you want to do. Remember that progression-wise, you have to finish this assignment before you can move on to the annotated biography. I think, though, that basically covers you for all the ideas you have to do. You're basically proposing the idea for the paper for me, showing me what research you plan on using, show me the thesis you plan to prove. I approve it, and then you move on to the next step. That's about everything you need to see. I'll go over the other steps of the process, like annotated bibliography, the peer review, paper itself, presentations next week. I have no idea of knowing how long I've gone because I was interrupted a few times, so the video is probably very long, like 3 hours-ish. 4 hours, good Lord. Which means it's probably actually like a 2-hour video because I was interrupted a few times. So I may have another lesson on argument this week, or that may get pushed to next week, or I may have another lesson on logic this week. It just kind of depends. There may be another lesson, there may not be. I'll let you know whichever one it is. I think that's about it. Y'all have a good one.